This young girl, no, very quietly, tiny little frail girl, she comes in front and she shows it to the teacher, and the teacher immediately has tears in her eyes, because, and I asked, like, what happened, like, kya ho gaya? I was very curious. So the teacher said that this child, no, does not excel at anything. She's not a good sports person, she's not good at studies, she cannot talk very well, so she's never there in plays and all the cultural activities. But she's the first to finish this model, and build this challenge. And she's like, for the first time I've seen accomplishment in her eyes. And that is a feeling, no, we want to replicate in many, many, many schools.
Hi, hello, namaste to all my listeners. I'm your host Sarthak Varshney, and I welcome you all to the Balls of Steel show, where you get an insight into the business mindset of the entrepreneurs. Dhandho ni Soch. Our today's guest is Abbas Gabajiwala. Hi, Abbas. How's it going?
It's going well, yeah. Struggling a
Yep,
bit in these
good.
times, but it's okay, going on well.
Okay, that's good to know. So, Abbas, what is the business that you're doing because of which we are gonna say that you've got the balls of steel?
Um, so the business that we are building right now is a STEM education business where we teach robotics to children, and through robotics we are
Okay.
teaching them about science, technology, engineering, and maths, and hopefully trying to develop their skills that they will need for the future. So skills like creativity, cognition, problem solving, things like this, which otherwise they don't get through a traditional education system.
Okay, so you are kind of combining edtech with robotics and team building and all that stuff out there.
Absolutely, spot on. Exactly.
Right, right. So, Abbas, why don't we just dive into your journey and why don't you start from the very beginning of your journey till the very current point at which you are and tell us everything in detail?
Okay, so basically, my family has been in the business of toys since more than 70, 80 years. So it's been
Okay.
really a generational business. About 25, 30 years ago, my father started this company called Zephyr Toymakers, where he built mechanics sets, doctor sets, construct creative toys, art and craft toys, things like that, teaching aids,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So he started this company about 25, 30 years ago with the motivation that he wanted to create international quality and very educative toys at prices which most children in India can afford, which at that point
Okay.
was not really very readily available because all the good quality toys were imported and they were very expensive. So they were really targeted towards a very niche market. So he wanted to bring
Mm-hmm.
that quality of toys and that kind of play value and things like that to kids, that so that most Indian kids, including his own kids, could afford. So
Mm-hmm.
I think Mechanix is a very well recognized brand in construction toys where you have metal parts, nuts, bolts, you join them together and you build cars and trains and trucks and things like that.
Right.
So I did my engineering, and when I finished my engineering and I joined the company about 10 years ago, I was very focused on mechanics. So through my journey, I was a part of the design over there. I added motors, gears, and really focused on the robotics aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
During this process, we used to hire a lot of engineers, and they might have had the knowledge on engineering, but they really didn't have the skills. So if you ask any side related question, any indirect question, they really couldn't answer, and they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
apply their knowledge in any actual application. So, and creativity, innovation was very low. So I realized that there was a real big lacuna over here. It was very difficult to uh, because our company is a toy company and we are designing new kind of concepts and things like that. So innovation and creativity was a part of our culture, and it was sad
Mm-hmm.
to see that most engineers in India didn't have it. At least they weren't trained for it. At the same time,
Right.
robotics for kids was growing very fast, and people used to use our mechanic sets, uh, the mechanics parts and screwdrivers to actually build robotics kits so that they could go to schools and different classes and teach children. So that's
Mm-hmm.
when I started a division for spare parts, where all these trainers can come, they can buy their own spare parts, create their own kit, and do the education the way that they thought was right. Surprisingly, a lot
Okay.
of kids started buying these spare parts themselves for their own projects, and school projects, science projects, things like that. So I realized
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lot of innovation beyond what just our kit and the book actually says. So kids were building their own things, which was actually what we wanted.
Right.
We also used to do a lot of mechanic sets testing. So every time we create a new product, we test it out with a few kids, and I conduct workshops and teach kids the concept and all. And I realized how powerful their imagination and creativity was. So
Right.
there was a clear connect that if you can target these kids at this age, right, at between 8 and 13, when they're not so involved in academics and studies, that they really have time, and they really have their creative power is still intact before the structure of education comes into play.
Right.
And when people start telling, no, this is done this way, this is done this way, so if at that age you give them the tools to allow them to think of things creatively and build projects and come up with their own solutions for problems, the value that was created for them was great. you know
Right.
so we did a lot of research on this, on how kids play with things and how they build things. And through all of that conclusion, we've developed this product called Blix. And Blix is also a
Okay.
construction set, plastic parts and things like that, but it's much easier and quicker for kids to build and break and attach different engineering components and circuits to it and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when we introduced this, the response from the robotics industry was phenomenal. I mean, all of the trainers loved it because it took away the hassle of them having to teach how to tighten a nut and bolt, which comes with mechanics. So, in a very short
Mm-hmm.
term format, Blix was great. That's when I realized that I really wanted to focus on education. And while our education system currently might be great at imparting knowledge, to prepare them for the future, we really need to develop their 21st century skills, you know,
Right.
creativity, cognition, the things that I mentioned earlier. And we
Mm-hmm.
do that through robotics with motors, gears, electronics that they can attach and build their own models with.
Right.
So that's how so that's how we started Blix Robotics as an entity.
Okay, okay, okay. So that's a good journey for the beginning of Blix, but
Yes,
we've got lots of lots and lots of journey of yours also that we have to look at and everything that needs to happen. So,
sure.
some of the very basic questions like, where did you do your engineering from? India, abroad?
I did my engineering from India. I did it in Pune from VIT, and after that, I
Okay,
did my MBA from Singapore. And
okay,
yeah, so that was what my engineering was, my education was. And when I was doing my MBA from Singapore, I had this fantastic job opportunities, over there. I mean,
right,
there's a lot of opportunity over there. But I really wanted
right.
to. I loved engineering, and I really wanted to be in this space, and I really wanted to work with kids. So my calling was always building these products and these kits and having kids play with them and learn from them a lot.
Okay, so looking at all this love and all this love for engineering,
Hmm.
I can somewhere feel that, this would be coming around from your early days when your father started Zephyr, and he wanted the toys for you as children also, and for other children also, and that is probably you would have started playing with it a lot and got your interest into engineering and everything. So why don't you tell me about this early age where you started learning from looking at your father what he was doing, and what actually inclined your interest towards also engineering? Because something specific that I want to know is that, because your father has been into this business, and you've been looking at him for a long time that he's doing this thing and building toys, and you're also learning doing that. So why did you pick up engineering? Did he ask you, or you picked it up yourself because of the interest? What was it like?
Okay, so my father is not a engineer by degree, but he's an engineer by experience. So when he started
Okay.
the company, he left his family business about 20, 30 years ago. And when he started Zephyr
Okay.
Toymakers, he started out from an abandoned lift shaft. So there was this building, it was a industrial complex, and he had gone to the builder and he said, I don't have any money. And he knew this person personally. So he said that I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
money to really pay you rent or buy one of your plots, but I need some space. If you've got any empty galas that I can use. So that fellow said
Mm-hmm.
that we've not got any empty galas, but I have this small space. It we were planning to put a lift over there, but that plan is pushed for some time. So it was very very tiny space. It was about some 6 feet by 6 feet by 10 feet, something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is where he started from. He put his one machine over there. He used to create all the dies, design the dies, and manufacture them himself. And then he would had this one hand molding machine with which
Right.
you pull on the lever and plastic folds into a mold and it comes in the form of a toy and it comes out. So with that single machine he started his business. And
Okay.
slowly his entire focus was always on quality, and he wanted to provide quality that Indian companies weren't really used to providing. So he worked very
Uh-huh.
hard, slowly grew like that, and we've seen this struggle of his, right? Because it started just a little while before I was born, but my brother was there. So by the time
Okay.
my brother was 8 or I was about 8-10 years old, we used to go to the factory and sit down and pack boxes ourselves, you know. And while doing that, I've seen my
Okay.
father designing toys. I've seen him take molds from one place to the other, to one from one workshop to another, to get one job done. So we've seen him going through the struggle, and many times I used to accompany him on all these trips, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was a fantastic experience for me. I loved this idea of how a toy can come out from just a concept to a real living breathing entity. It's got its own structure. So I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed that whole process. And while growing up, I was a part of that, and I used to play with a lot of these toys. Mechanics was one of my favorite kits when I was a kid. So I
Mm-hmm.
used to build models also, which eventually would turn into some set or another. And doing all of that, I really got passionate. I was very passionate about this. And eventually, when I had to choose my career path, I knew engineering was the way for me, because this was something that I really enjoyed. And even when I was in college, I usually was in the defaulters list, because me and my friends used to take part in all of these engineering contests and robot making competitions where you would have to build
Right.
robots that
Right.
do tasks. And
Right.
most of my time was spent over there, and I realized how the value of mechanics, because whatever I'd learned while playing with mechanics, I used it over here. And we used to be first year students competing with third and fourth year students, and we would have
Mm-hmm.
certain level of success. So I knew that there was something special about this, and that's why I wanted to really focus on this part of it. So that's my journey of experiencing engineering as a child, taking it up as a profession, and really wanting other children also to experience engineering through play the way that I did.
Okay, okay. So one small question on this part. I
Yeah.
mean, this is completely on the business front. When we talk about business, and these days also, every time we're talking about business, and we say that, you don't really need a degree in everything for doing a business. And if you look at your dad's experience also, so like he didn't have a professional engineering degree, but he started making something which required all engineering stuff, right?
Yes.
So didn't he ever tell you, ki, beta, you can directly probably just do business management, or maybe you can just join the business after after your schooling and take it forward from there. You learn it on the go and anything of that sort. Why didn't he ever tell you that thing or anything of that sort happened?
No, actually, to the contrary, he always felt that because he didn't have the actual education of how engineering works, he always
Hmm.
felt handicapped, and he had to take help from other people. And he found himself being stuck at a lot of points in life because he didn't have that formal education. And he was, he really wanted me to do my engineering because he felt that if I had that knowledge, I could have done things much better. You know.
Okay, and did the things become much better because you did, which was the stream, mechanical engineering?
I did my mechanical engineering. Yes.
Right. So, do you really think the whatever happened in the company, be it from the manufacturing process and whatever you learn in engineering college, because being an engineer myself and knowing all the syllabuses out there, I know that though they don't really relate much whatever happens in the real life. So, what has been your experience if we try and relate that part?
So, like I said, right, when I was a kid, I played with a lot of this, and I used to go and buy motors from the market and, from Lamington Road and
Mm,
build small projects. So, basically, I always had that thing, and I experienced a little bit of engineering because of my dad's business and the products that he made. So when I actually went to engineering and I did it, I could connect some of that knowledge with my experiences that I've had as a child, and
Hmm.
because of that connection, now it made sense to me. Secondly, the competitions that I took part in, actually, that's where I really implemented my knowledge also to a certain point. So I feel that engineering on its own is incomplete, because the child who's entering engineering has just gone through his 10th standard, where academics is everything. He's gone through his 11th 12th learning science, where focuses again completely on academics, and then he joins engineering. So that last,
Hmm.
just before joining engineering, the few years that he's been spending in the education system is when he learns that he's been taught that everything in your book is
Hmm.
right and everything outside the book is wrong, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's what we are told, that study the book completely, your
Right.
textbook is your guide. But no great
Right.
innovation comes out of studying from a textbook. No
Right.
great
Right.
new discovery comes ever out of a textbook. So that is what really the skills are required for, especially today, because
Right.
like you said, degrees are not so important for doing business. Honestly, I feel degrees aren't even important for doing a job anymore. Google, Apple, Facebook, these companies don't even look for software engineering degrees even for their programmers. So
Right.
today it just depends upon uh, uh, the skill that you have, the experience that you have, and how you have applied it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. I get it. So, moving on, Abbas, I understand why you did the engineering, and what was the complete intention behind it. It was a sheer growth of yourself and for the business. But what about MBA? Why did you decide to do MBA? Whose decision was it?
Honestly, it was my brother's decision.
Okay.
Yeah, he and me are very close. We are in business also together, and he's always been like another father figure to me. And like, my father wanted to
Right.
do engineering because he didn't have the exposure of formal engineering.
Haha.
My brother always
Right.
felt that an international exposure was very important for us. So he said that, why don't you go and study abroad? You know, understand how the world works. And I think it really changes perception, because living in one city or one country, it gives you an idea of how one culture works. But really, to be able to understand how global works, it's nice to have sometimes some experience living abroad. And MBA was the easier thing for me to do, because I was wanting to do business. I've always been in a business family, so I thought MBA is good. Why not?
Right, right, right. Abbas, just 1 second, right?
Yeah.
I'm audible to you?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So, yeah, so that's a good idea about why you went out and did MBA. So I mean, what was your what would I say? Then आपकी इच्छा क्या थी? What did you really want? Did you really want to do MBA after engineering, or you wanted to come back and join it? What was your mindset, and did you feel like I'm being forced or something like that, or maybe you were reasoned out pretty well?
Engineering, though, I think was completely my decision. I was wanting to do automobile engineering before I decided on mechanical, because there aren't too many automobile engineering colleges in India. So, and VIT is a great college. So that's how I did my mechanical engineering.
Right.
Going to Singapore and doing my MBA was, it wasn't a forced decision, but it seemed like a natural progression at the time. Like, it was such an obvious thing for people to do engineering and then do their MBA, right? Especially if you're going to be doing a business or something. So I think that it was the obvious thing to do. I never felt that I was forced into it. Nobody ever forced me into uh, going over there, choosing the college or anything.
Mm,
So I guess it was just a natural progression for me.
it was not. So you kind of went with the flow of the society.
Yeah, to a large extent.
Okay, okay, okay. I get it. So that's quite a thing. So, Abbas, now what I want to know is, something from the money perspectives. Okay. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the way we look at your father's story, right? There's a lot of struggle in the initial days, and as you told, like he started with a very small lift shaft space and making things happen. So at that point, I would look if I because at that point even Zephyr wasn't established as the name it is right now, right? So there definitely
Hmm.
it was a very starting stage, and there would have been money issues with the family and everything as well. So from that part, would it be right for me to say you have witnessed the initial money crunch struggle that a family goes in establishing a business?
Absolutely. So I remember my mom and dad, surprisingly, according to the Islamic calendar, their birthdays fall on the same date.
Okay.
So I remember them celebrating their birthday with by sharing one nimbu pani from the nimbu pani wala downstairs. So that's how they've grown. There's been severe struggles. There have been severe struggles to buy basic essentials. So I've seen that struggle in the early part of my life, and that's why when it comes to today, and today when we look at business, today also we are not funded at all. We are completely bootstrapped. Zephyr is a completely bootstrapped company.
Right.
So money struggles still are there on a much larger scale,
Uh-huh.
like with much bigger cash transactions. But money struggle has always been there. That is why we've been a little frugal with money in our business always. We look at business very differently from the current crop of startups that really come up and have very different type of business plans. So we are more conservative in that sense.
Okay. Okay, that's nice. So, Abbas, what I really want to know is that, how, because, going to VIT is an expensive college. Going abroad, that's again added expense, be it Singapore, be it anywhere, right? It's a good expense,
Yes.
and that to your two brothers who have been who have done education. And looking at you, I'm pretty sure your parents have done a great job providing great education. So business has really boomed over the period of time. What I want to know is that how what has been instilled in your mind with this learning. You're looking at the business grow, looking at the cash flow grow with time over the period of time, the struggle that started, the struggle easing out, and then you can live a good life. So what did that instill inside you, in the mindset and everything?
So, I'll give you an example. So, when I was very young, no, there were these pair of Nike shoes that I liked, and as a school going boy, you can imagine that love, right? I was like obsessed with these particular Nike shoes that I loved like crazy. And my mom said, "Okay, fine, we will get okay in by this Friday. I will get you the money, and we will go and buy it." So I was counting down the hours, like, okay, only so many hours, 100 hours left, and 50 hours, and then 24 hours. And I was waiting for that day when my mom would come home and give me the money in my hand. And that day she came home and she said, "You know what? I had this money, and one person in our factory who works with us and does some packing with us, he had to pay his home loan, and he had no money, and he was going to lose his house. So I had to give him this money. So do you mind?" And at that point, of course, I was very heartbroken. But as days passed, I kind of, I always sort of equated what really makes sense. Where do you actually spend, and what kind of what does money really mean, and what makes sense? So in that sense, even while growing up, and eventually when I did go to Singapore, we did have the money to spend over there. I to be honest, but I still wanted to take a loan, an education loan, because I wasn't sure I was going to come back and work in the business. I We took an education loan, which eventually, when I did come back, started working with the company. From my salary, I started paying. So those are the small things that we really want to keep the responsibility of money on each one of us. Like we've been very careful about it. We understand its value, and what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. That's basically what I'd like to say.
Oh, that's a good insight. How you've tried to keep yourself. I mean, for the lack of better word, I would say, on the track where you are still in sync with the money management, and not letting yourself fly away with the business. I would say, right. Uh, I hope you're getting my point. I mean, I'm completely saying in the positive sense. I'm just lacking some words here right now. Okay, so this is a very great initiative that you took, and I would rather tell my listeners, guys, whosoever is listening to this right now, that you really need to do this. I mean, I'm just going to put up a very small example from my life, that my brother is not an engineer, and I keep telling my parents that you need to send him out, and you should send him out sometime someday, and just give him such an x amount of money and let him handle his stuff, because he's going to learn a
Yeah.
lot at that point. And that and he'll learn to live life, जब खुद के कपड़े धोने पड़ेंगे, जो अभी महाराज जी, like probably sometimes my brother just wears one pair of clothes a day and then he'll put it for washing. I'm like, जब खुद धोने पड़ेंगे तो समझ आएगा. That is a lot of
Absolutely.
life lessons, right? And that makes you realize a lot of stuff. So that is what exactly Abbas has done, I would say. And I really respect him and for this thing, that he took up a loan in his name and he paid it back with the salary that he made from his company. That's a very, very commendable thing, because he has never left that struggle, I would say. That way he's always respected money in whichever way it was. And as he already told us that the company is completely bootstrapped, so then the struggles, I would say, even increases, because that the business is sustainable. It can go in the opposite direction also someday, because you don't have any investor on board.
Hmm.
So if any of you keep up with that approach, in the long run it is definitely going to help. That's all I can say. Anything you want to add to this, Abbas?
Absolutely. I think it has a lot to do with my parents' upbringing as well. Like how, because they've seen the struggle and we've seen them struggle. So it's an experience that you always live with. And I think that I hope that my niece, my nephew today, the lives that they are living, they also experience this to some extent. Because it's difficult in today's world
Right, right, right.
to teach that value.
I understand. So, Abbas, on this very small part, like now, what I want to know is that you already told us that you would go to the factory and look at how your father would, transfer stuff from one place to another and all that stuff. So, when you're in the
Hmm.
factory part, you unintentionally learn a lot of stuff which you happen to implement in your businesses later in the life, right? And when you
Yes.
look back at time, then you realize, okay, this is how my father did, or this is how the things are meant to be done. Or sometimes it's like it's our fathers keep on saying something and something on a very repeated basis, right? For
Hmm.
example, my father keeps telling me, beta, employees ko aise treat karna chahiye and all that stuff. So maybe your father will also tell you something. So what were these small things? Like, I want some instances and small things that you picked up from your early experience of going to the factory, looking at things happening, and what did you implement and what did you pick up from there?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Okay, so when I was young, no, and I used to travel with my father, and I used to go to the factory, and I also used to go to the die maker and the guy who would print our boxes and the guy who would bake, punch our boxes, and lots of different people, all the people who did work for us. And my father would sit over there and discuss with that guy that why the printing is done like this and why can't we do it like this, you know he never ever took no ye aisa hi hota hai as an answer, because of which a lot of innovations in the entire industry today were actually developed at some point by my father. He would actually go and tell the printer how to print. He would go and tell the guy who made those metal parts and mechanics, the punching and all, he would go and tell him how to do this. He was involved in every part of it because he always felt that things could be done better. Right. That is something that I really learned from him. And he, so while we were growing, when I joined the business and we were working on a new product, a new mold together, there was this plastic, we've got this toy called plastic mechanics,
Right,
where there are plastic nuts and
right,
bolts. So the plastic nut is a quite a complex mold to make. Okay, it's got these complexities where you have to add gears in the mold and you have to unscrew each piece from the mold. So it's a complex and expensive job to do.
right.
So there was this one idea that I had where it would be, you can make it in a single thread and make the whole process much easier. And I was discussing with him, and he was of that opinion. No, no, this won't work. I've thought a lot about this and things like that. And we had this bet, where he said that if you find a solution to this problem, every day I'll do salam to you, because I have not been able to find a solution.
Okay.
you know and it was a big challenge for me, because throughout my life, he's been the guy who's found all the solutions for me. Like, I would take a problem and he would know how to fix it. There was ever a problem and he could fix it. And so I took up the challenge. We created the design, we actually did the mold, and the mold worked well. The part worked very well. And he was like, okay, so that day was for me a moment where I felt, okay, I can also tell somebody who's got so much experience like my father how something can be done.
Hmm.
And so that was a big learning for me, that nobody is such a big master that everything that they do is right. And this learning I apply in my business every day, because when I'm talking to kids, this is the reason why I love working with kids, because kids have such a fantastic imagination and so much creativity, that you give them a problem now and they'll find 20 different ways of solving this problem, which no person in the industry or in the space can ever think of.
Right.
you
Right.
know so a lot of so this is something that I love dealing with kids, and what I want them to learn in the long run as well, that there's nobody who knows everything of everything. So if you think there's a better way to do something, no, you should try it out, because chances are you might actually succeed.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so I hope
Yeah, this
that's
is
what you
this
were
is what
asking.
you picked up from your experiences working at factory and looking at your father, and then this is what I believe you've been applying all your business life now.
Absolutely. Never take an answer like no, yeah, ऐसा ही होता है. Whenever you hear that statement, no, it is like, okay, there is definitely a way to improve this process, because this person has stopped thinking about it.
Right. On this note, I would like to, put up a. I don't think so. It's a quote or maybe it's something someone has said. I don't know, but I've read this quite a few times on a lot of platforms, and it said that when a person says no or when a person says it's impossible for them, not for you.
Hmm.
So if you can make it happen, just go and try it out. And that's how I guess all the businesses are coming
Exactly.
around right now. So on this part, when you
Absolutely.
mentioned Abbas that you and your father had a bet. So this is a very good instance around which I definitely have a question. So many times happens that parents do start up a company and then there are that they become experienced with time. And you also said that when you finally achieved that challenge, you were like, I can tell someone as experienced as your father that things could be done better. So did it ever happen your father told you कि बेटा तुम्हें नहीं पता तुम रहने दो, this is how this has been working and everything of this sort, even though your father would himself tell the workers how things could be made better? So did any this sort of conversation happen between you guys in the family ever? And if yes,
Absolutely.
how did you tackle, and what was your mindset and how did you try and convince him at that point of time?
So that has happened, that happens all the time. My father, because everyone seems to get stuck into the mode, right? However innovative they sometimes do feel like, okay, I've really tried this out, it just doesn't work, so it might not have a solution. So a lot of times my father has told me this, and every time he does, I just remind him of all of things that people have told him that were impossible, and he kind of did. So does he really mean it that it is impossible, or is like, should I give it a shot? Like, I bring out this point quite aggressively to him, which does sometimes he accepts and sometimes it just tickles him a little bit. So it does happen, of course. He does tell me things
So
like
do
that.
you think so this is a generation gap thing or is it's a personal thing? Because I have seen such things happening in family business a lot of times where the elder people many times don't take up the answers to given or the suggestions advices given by the younger generation just because they think so they know better. So what would you call it? A personality issue or a generation gap stuff? What would your
I would say, see, sometimes, a lot of times, even me in my youth, I've said that no, this should not happen like that, this should happen like this. And I've like, in my position, generally it would be like, how my father doesn't listen to me, right? I've got this idea and I think it is going to be it's going to be a killer idea, and things like this, and he doesn't listen to me at all. I've actually had a lot of people have this kind of a complaint towards their father. But like, now, after about 10, 12 years in the business with him, I realized that even that experience holds a lot of value. you know the day that the child can actually accept that experience as experience that holds value, and talk from a platform of, okay, I've learned all of this is from you, but what about this? If you can bring a solution that does not directly interfere and reject their experience, I think that they would be a lot more accepting to what you might have to say, you know because that experience that they have does hold a lot of value, and they would like it to be appreciated,
Right.
and I think it deserves to be appreciated as well.
Definitely. Definitely.
So because their struggles are struggles which we will never ever see,
Right.
so to discount all of that and to negate all of that would also be quite detrimental. It doesn't help in growth of the business either, or the individual.
Definitely. So on this point, I this is something really great that Abbas has pointed out, and something that I also personally believe in my family business and my personal business also that I do and stuff. So it's like, uh, guys, whosoever is listening to this, you really need to listen to people. Listening is very important. You don't need to hear them. Listen to them. Try and understand, and try to empathize for once you start empathizing, listening, and thinking yourself in their shoes at that point of time, you would realize what they did, why they did, and then you come back to the present scenario at whichever situation you are, and then you think of solution. Your solution would be much much better, somewhat what something that like Abbas is telling right now, something you would be accepting to, and he would also probably accept to, because your that solution would consist of
Absolutely.
your new ideas and his old experience. That is where the growth lies, in the synchronization of both of these two.
Absolutely,
So
100%.
that needs to happen. Okay, so moving on, Abbas, this business journey is really really good. Now talking about the MBA part, a bit back into the journey, you said you had job offers, plenty of job offers and all that stuff. So I'll be very honest. When after my engineering, also my mom was like, you should sit for placements and everything. And I was very clear that I want to do business and I'll be doing business. I can't sit for placement and stuff, and that's not really my thing. Did anything of this sort? Family pressure came in. Ki boss, you need to do a job to get some experience or anything of that sort. Ki beta kar lo, mil rahi hai, good opportunity, or what was it like?
So yeah, so while my father wanted me to come back and join the business and things like that, and he tried a lot of emotional tricks and tips to make that happen. My brother, again, like I mentioned, right? He was like he's older to me, and he's been like another father to me. So he was the one who said that no, you wait back and you get some sort of experience over there. You do something, understand how the world works a little better in actual business, things like that, and then you should come and join. So there was conflicting pressures on me from both of the
Right.
directions, but uh, I guess my heart lied in mechanics, and I just wanted to work on it, and I knew I could do a lot over there, so I decided to come back.
Okay, so you left the jobs and you
Yeah.
came back. Right.
Yeah, I didn't really pursue any of the opportunities that might have been there over there.
Okay. And did this cross also not, did this thought not cross your mind where you would probably think, कि बस dad आपने इंडिया में सेटअप कर दिया, let me expand this globally from Singapore or something like that?
I was never really involved too much in uh, the business part of Zephyr, because it had a set distribution network. We do export to Germany and Australia. Zephyr does export to Germany, Australia, UK, a lot of the European countries, UAE,
Mhm.
you know, Middle East, everywhere. We do export over there. Not as much as we would like, but we do. That is something that for me always the passion was, what kind of what can we create for kids, and it was always my brother who looked after the marketing and the growth and the business direction that we wanted to take. So that was something that I let him take care of, and he let me take care of developing the next generation of products that would work for kids while I was working at Jafaria.
Okay, 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 okay. That's quite interesting. Okay, okay. So
Hmm.
the next thing that comes up is that you. So how long did you really work at Zephyr before starting Blix?
So I was working parallelly for Zephyr and Blix since the last. I've been working parallelly since the last 4 years. But last year, about a year and a half ago, I kind of said that I'm not going to be working on Zephyr anymore.
Mm.
And that's when I stepped down to work completely on Blix.
Okay.
So it's been about a year and a half that I've been solely working on Blix
Okay.
itself.
So, take it. So, a couple of questions that are gonna come here now. First of all, what have been your money management plans while you were working at Zephyr? How did you manage your money, and has been the cash flow management like? Because it's a family business, so give us more insight about it. How does this thing happen?
So we were a full family business, right? So apart from my dad and my brother, my mom was also a part of the
Okay.
business, and she was very active in it. She was looking after the while my dad was running it, again, developing and producing toys. Used to look after the factory and the development. It was my mom who looked after the administration, the HR, and the finance.
Okay.
So till quite recently, she was very actively into that, and she was like the whole and soul direction of how our money is going to be spent and how cash flow is going to happen. Now, like I mentioned, we are a more traditional business, right? So raising funds to grow further, that was really not not even an option for a long time. Then since last year, when I stepped down from Zephyr, my brother is taken over the finances of Zephyr as well, and he's got his eye on the ball. He's got his direction that he wants to go completely debt free in the next 3 years. He wants to build a company that is not too focused on manufacturing, so he wants to divest from manufacturing and focus more on R&D and sales, so that we can focus more on building the brand. So his budgeting is based on that at some point we are going to divest from our entire manufacturing facility. We are going to outsource those operations, and we're going to invest more in developing the brand and building our product line.
Right, right. I understand. Okay, that's quite a nice
Hmm.
thing. So, Abbas, now another thing that comes up is like somewhere how I am seeing this. Maybe I can be wrong, but you're kind of walking in your father's shoes, right? So
Yes.
the reason I'm saying that is because you told us that your father he left his family business to start up his own one. Now, after you've
Yes.
been parallelly working on Blix, then you left, then you finally stepped down a year and a half back and working on your own. So that is the reason I would say you're kind of following your own father's footsteps, right? And
Hmm.
with that said, what I want to know is what is the initial struggle that you faced while parallelly establishing Blix? And number two, what has been the funding of Blix like? Is it company to company, or is it like from personal expenses, or what is it like? I mean, what has it been? Because family businesses, when sometimes you grow or some, let's say I want to take up a new company, I take a insecure loan from the parent company or something of this of such sort happens, right? So what has been the case in your scenario?
Yeah, it's very similar. Zephyr has been funding Blix to this end, but my brother is still a part of Blix, and I'm still a part of
Hmm.
Zephyr. Now, the teething problems were a lot because what was difficult for me when I've come from Zephyr into Blix was Zephyr had a set market. It had set products. It had a manufacturing facility, and it had all the things were in place, and we just had to grow.
Right,
With Blix, it is very different because I didn't realize how difficult it would be to get the first few customers. You know, I didn't realize how difficult it would be to set up a channel to reach out to those customers, and I underestimated how difficult building a brand is.
right,
So we've had teething problems. We've had a lot of learnings on the way. Um, when we started Blix Robotics, we started with kits which instead of toys, there would be kits which every trainer can take and use for their own robotics class,
right.
right? And we supplied all of these to Atal Tinkering Labs and things like this. But it took us time to find a model that kind of fit and made sense.
Hmm.
And today also, like after coming up with those initial kits, we've changed our model a couple of times. We noticed that when we are trying to do robotics workshops at home or in a particular community space, we started realizing that kids are far more busier than what we thought, even more than adults, because they've got skating classes and swimming classes and dance classes and art classes and things like that. So and their schools are at different timings, so to get a batch of 10 students, while all parents are very excited, the logistics just to make that happen was very difficult. So these tiny learnings is what we've had, and we've modified our business model to the point where today we are working directly with schools, where we want to set up Blix labs in schools, and we want Blix to be as a subject in the school, compulsory for all students, just like how they have maths or geography or history or English. They'll have a Blix period every week where the child comes and builds something and takes a challenge and do something. So the challenges were to find the right business model, to find the right strategy, to find the right product market fit. Customers might love it, but to convert them into a paying customer who also gets our offering, it's very difficult. It was a whole different ball game, and I wasn't ready for that kind of a challenge. But of course, once you jump in the pool, then you have to learn how to swim. So that's basically how it's happened.
Right, right. So that's quite a number of challenges, I would say, you have experienced, and you've learned with that. But now the question that arises is that did you really not think that you would have to face these challenges while setting up Blix? And when you did set up Blix and all these challenges you faced and something, so you there would have been some installation in your mind, looking at the past and everything. So what did this instill in you as a person for the Blix business in your mindset?
As in, can you just repeat that? I didn't get it
Okay, so no
properly.
worries. So what I mean to say is that when you started with the Blix and you told us that there are numbers and numbers of challenges that you faced, right? From
Mm-hmm.
getting first few customers, setting up the channel, and pivoting the model again and again. So the way my one of the questions is that didn't you really know that Blix being a new entity will have to go through all these challenges? Number one, and number two question being, what facing these challenges instilled in you as a mindset, because you faced these after a long time, personally I would say, and you have only kind of seen them from your father doing it. So what did it instill in you?
Um, it first of all, it instilled tremendous respect for my parents, who have started Zephyr and who've been able to build their business from scratch the way that they
Hmm.
have. Because you always assume things have been much easier when you hear their story. Because when you read a book or you hear a story, you're just listening to about to their entire life. So many years of their experience. You're listening to it in maybe a few minutes or a couple of hours maximum, so you don't realize how difficult those months and months of struggle have been, right? Now if I anticipated these problems in the beginning, of course I anticipated problems. I knew that there would be challenges, but tiny things, I didn't realize getting tiny things done would be so difficult. I knew parents love this product, I knew kids enjoyed playing with it. I thought that this is going to be easy, it's going to be an easy sale, because everything is going to work out because things are so simple. But the way the market works, the way the way that people's mindset works, it's very difficult to understand the tiny problems or the intricate problems that you have to solve to make a successful business before you actually get into it.
Right.
So while I anticipated, I knew how where I would face problems, but I didn't realize the magnitude, how difficult it would be, and some of them which I thought would be very easy to pass actually were not.
So why don't you give me some
So
example from this very thoughtful experience that you would have had, ki this would have been easy, oh my god, but this isn't easy, one of the experience.
So I'll again give you the same example of this the trainers that we were getting, right. So a lot of people hold robotics classes, and we thought, okay, fine, we are going to give it to these guys who are smart, intelligent people and who want to go and teach kids. So we got like every other robotics class, what we did was we set up a job description, put it out there, interviewed about 50 100 engineers, young engineers, who would come, and they're engineers, so they've gotten the knowledge, they just have to impart it to the kids. And so we thought that business was set, I mean, it would work. And we trained them well, we had a whole training session, and I was very happy by the end of it because their knowledge was with them. And then we put them in front of this group of 10 children. And to have a knowledge and to be an engineer is one thing, but to be able to control 10 children with a toy in front of them, at least something that resembles a toy in front of them, and telling them that this is now what you have to do and this is what we are wanting you to do, is extremely difficult. So that was a challenge that we faced, that in spite of going through all this effort and this time hiring all these young engineers, we realized that engineering can be taught, but teaching, I mean, managing children and controlling children, and that experience is more important. So we pivoted our direction of how we want teachers from uh, from fresher engineers to experienced teachers who we are going to teach engineering to.
Okay.
And that really worked, because eventually our product is to teach engineering to kids, and we thought that was easy to impart to a teacher, who was interested in learning something new, and their experience of managing kids was something that really blew our mind away. And I actually got a lot of respect for teachers after that, because I seen the struggle that they really go through. So this is one example of the challenges that we face, which we thought was going to be an easy peasy thing to cross, but wasn't.
Okay, okay, okay. Reminded you some of your college days when you were used to do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the good teachers, the like my respect for the good teachers is like sky high today. I mean, it's really difficult. More than college, it's cool, because with very young children, you're not just a teacher, right? They really look up to you as a
Mm,
mentor. So it's a huge responsibility in today's world to be a teacher, and we want to get people who understand that responsibility well.
right. So on this note, like
Yeah.
since you're jump to getting deeper into the edtech part, I would say, what would you really talk about? Because now teaching is also becoming kind of sort of a business, right? So what is your
Yeah.
insight over this part? Becoming a teacher should be more like a mentor, or I mean, I don't even have the like right question over this, but the scenario, what the current scenario that is happening, right? Teaching is becoming more business sort of stuff,
Yes.
and we're losing the ethos and the essence of teaching. So, what would you like to say about it? What's your thought process of?
I So it would be surprising, but an average salary that a teacher in India gets is between 8 and 12,000 rupees. Right now, for 8 and 12,000 rupees, and this is in English medium schools, right? So you can imagine that 8 and 12, 8, 9, 10. This kind of a salary when you're getting a month, it is as much as you would give a peon or a watchman, or any profession where you do, which might have responsibility, but it can be a fresher job as well, right? And this is what experienced teachers are making today. Now teachers are the ones who are going to influence the next generation of kids to do great work, right? To make our country shine and to make our society
Mhm.
better. How can you not really value them as much? So I feel that in our country we have really disrespected the teaching profession. Schools, in a bid to get more parents and things like that, have paid attention to the kind of buildings that they make, and the science labs that they have, and the fancy infrastructure that they have. But you would really identify which educational institution is giving good value of education. You should look at their teachers and how their teachers are treated, because it's a difficult job. It's something that most people join out of passion, which is how it should be, but their passion and their effort should be rewarded, which I think in our country we aren't doing as much. So one thing that we never ever in our business want to skimp on is the quality of teachers that we get. So in our business, we give teachers the opportunity to grow, so they can start as a junior trainer, they can grow as a senior trainer, then they have a chance, if they want, they can become a train the trainer, where they train other teachers, or if they want, they can become a part of the developmental team or the sales team. So we also give teachers the opportunity to grow, because in most places teachers know that they have a ceiling, beyond which they can't really
Right,
grow. And that's unfortunate in our country, that we don't respect them as much as we should.
right, right, right. That's a good insight, Buzz, that you're giving on this point. Okay,
Mhm.
so moving on now from the Blix part, I would say because it's your baby, right? I would be
Mhm.
proud to say that, and I hope that I'm not wrong in saying that also. That it's your baby.
Yes.
Okay, so what is your greatest fear and with Blix, and if you whatever it is, how do you manage that?
My greatest fear. So, like I mentioned, right? I love creating things. I love making sure that it's creating as much impact for a child as it could. But my greatest fear is that Blix might not reach as many kids as I wanted to, because I've not done my job right, and I've not spread the word enough. So I really believe in the impact it has on a child's development. And while they are the customers, there's a lot to navigate to make sure that they get access to it, and I need to make sure that that happens. Many parents and educators need to understand the value of hands-on play, and I have to take the responsibility to educate them on that. So my greatest fear is that it might not reach the number of children who I wanted to, and it might not reach the demographic of children who I wanted to. Because one reason for me to want to start Blix was, like I mentioned earlier, the engineers that I hired, I realized they don't have basic applied skills, and without those basic applied skills, their chances of getting a job are very low. And this generally happens to the lower strata of our society. So when I was in school, and I'm guessing when you were in school as well, there was either SSC board, or maybe if you're a little more well off, you can go to ICSE board or CBSE board,
Mm-hmm.
right? There was kind of a standardization of how education was. While it was not great,
Mm-hmm.
at least it was common for everyone.
Right.
In today's age, it's very different. Like my niece and nephew, they go to this very nice and fancy IB school,
Mm-hmm.
where the level of education is amazing. They have access to these great products and the great educational material and teaching aids. They have great teachers, highly experienced, and so they are getting a very good level of education. And it has become to a point in our country where the amount of money you have, that quality of education you will get. And this is even with primary and secondary education, right? The foundation of a child's educational life. So we don't want that by the time a child gets out of the 10th standard, child who comes from modest means, who does not have the financial backing to be able to go to a very high school, is already on a much lower platform as compared to a child who's gone to an IB school and paid a few lakhs every year as fees,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is a disparity which we want to change, and we want to change it with Blix. So the reason of going to schools and setting up a lab and making it compulsory for every child to do this is so that we can actually offer it at a rate which most parents would be able to afford, starting at a price of, for a parent, starting at a price of about 250 rupees or 300 rupees a month,
Right.
you know so those are prices which most people can afford. And they, even if your school is, however your schooling might be, they get a chance to be able to explore creativity and explore their own skills at this. So one example I'll give you is, I went to this school, again not a very well off school,
Mm-hmm.
but the teachers were very passionate over there.
Right.
And I did this one session with the kids where they had to build a particular robot.
Right.
And this young girl, very quietly, tiny little frail girl, she comes in front and she shows it to the teacher. And the teacher immediately has tears in her eyes, because, and I asked, like, what happened? Like, kya ho gaya? I was very curious. So the teacher said that this child, no, does not excel at anything. She's not a good sports person. She's not good at studies. She cannot talk very well. So she's never there in plays and all the cultural activities. But she's the first person, she's the first to finish this model, and build this challenge. And she's like, for the first time I've seen accomplishment in her eyes. And that is a feeling, no, we want to replicate in many, many, many schools. And I feel it is my responsibility to make sure that it spreads as far as it can. And that is my greatest fear, that even with this great experience that kids can have, because of me, it should not get limited to how many children I can reach.
Wow. That's really amazing. Yeah. It's really amazing. The motive with which you are going ahead and trying to accomplish your fears, and I would say that you are really banging on your fear, that facing it up front and there to nail it, that you won't take a back seat. So really applause to you for it. Nice.
Thanks.
So Abbas, moving on, a lot of things that happens in the business, and there are plenty of struggles that you have already listed to us in for the Blix. But if I ask you right now, so what are you currently struggling at Blix with?
Currently, it's so like I mentioned, since October last year, we've been focusing on creating the entire school curriculum. We've hired a lot of people to help us with the sales, because we want to get to schools, and that's a new market for us. So people who have experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we've hired designers, we've got salespeople, and we've got this big team, who are working towards getting as many schools as possible for year one. And unfortunately, because of coronavirus, that entire plan has gotten cancelled. So the week that we were going to go and sign the contracts and do all of that,
Mm-hmm.
everything went in lockdown, and all the schools are now shut till today. So the work that we had done for almost 6 months is kind of not r- coming into any returns, and we had invested a lot in getting this done. So this is a huge challenge that we are facing, and now we are trying to understand what kind of a model will work, because while schools are shut, so are all sorts of summer camps, and where kids can go and
Right.
play, and all the teachers can use our kids. So right now we are working on different business models and revenue models that will help us sustain through this period. So
Mm-hmm.
we've created online courses where kids can buy a kit from us, and they have access to all of
Mm-hmm.
that in online courses where they can learn about the concepts of force and power and speed, direction, those kind of things that they're learning in school and in
Right.
physics, they can learn through our kits. So we sell the kit, but the all the course and the content online is absolutely free for anyone who wants to come and access it.
Right. Right. Right.
So we're
So
trying different
talking on
models.
right. So talking about, since you told us you've been trying to figure out different investment and revenue models because of this Corona times.
Yeah,
So this is definitely a hard time for everyone, and that is exactly what everyone is doing right now, right?
exactly.
So talking from your MBA perspective, your young generation perspective, and all those mindsets, and probably if you would have read some books, so you would definitely be knowing the importance of investing, right? And
Yes.
for any, and there's another thing that you told us, that you or your family business is kind of the the it kind of runs on the older mindset, but still it has got the new blood and everything. But थोड़ा बहुत जो थोड़ा बहुत tinge है वो पुराना है, because it's a family business, right?
Hmm.
That's what you told us. So what are your investment plans for the family business, and how do you convince your parents, if you should invest here, if you should invest there, or what kind of investments does your family or you as a person follow? What, tell me more about it, because that again comes down to your money management in terms of business.
Are you talking about personal investments, or are you talking about business investments?
Both right now.
Okay, so we have a decent enough balance. Actually, I wouldn't say it's decent. Also, we are quite heavy on investing in our business itself. So
Mm-hmm.
personally, we do have our own personal insurances and mutual funds and things like that, but we are not too much of all our professional, and whatever we are looking at, our earnings for the future are basically invested in our company. So we don't focus too much on the stock market or something like that. When it comes to our
Mm-hmm.
businesses, how we are funding it right now, like I mentioned, Zephyr has some debt in terms of lines of credit and things like that, but we are planning to go debt free over there as well. That's one fiscal goal that we are having for the next 3 years. When it comes to Blix, I am continuously on track, justifying the steps that we are taking and what we are doing to be able to keep the operations running. I have to do that to Zephyr, so that because it is an in-company transfer, and I am responsible for this. When it comes to
Right.
raising money for Blix, definitely on the cards. But we were planning to do it this year, because would have everything like in place to convince somebody for our valuation, which we have set in place. Uh, I do not want to dilute without ever hitting that valuation. So currently we are again bootstrapping for Blix and trying to find revenue models which will help us sustain through this dark times. But we are eventually going to, in a year or two, we are definitely looking for raising funds.
Right. So basically, if I look at it, most of the investments are into the businesses back in there.
Yeah.
Right. ठीक है. So I mean, this is literally thinking out loud, है ना? And this is literally trying to understand from a layman perspective also, and from a business perspective also, कि uh, when we talk about growing wealth, right?
Mm-hmm.
What business definitely grows wealth, but the even larger growth comes with investment. Investing in different businesses, or investing in stocks. Since you all told us you guys don't do stocks, but so you guys don't even prefer, starting multiple businesses. Like one of Blix is definitely one thing, or maybe real estate investments, or something of that sort, so that your legacy stands, your empire stands. Are there any sort of these plans in your mindset, or maybe your family's mindset? Because definitely you guys would be leaving a legacy.
Hmm.
Point that comes around is what kind of legacy. You guys are definitely one of the greatest toy makers. That is for sure. I mean, who doesn't know Zephyr out there? Who hasn't played? Which kid hasn't played Mechanics? I would actually question that. But
Yeah.
when you talk about the legacy of the legacy, like the Reliance and the Apples and all those stuff, do you guys have such plans or something of that sort?
So like, in our family, we are, whatever we do now, we do out of tremendous passion, right? We don't look at it as, okay, creating this product is going to earn us that much money. Otherwise, Zephyr would
Hmm.
have a lot of snakes and ladders and Ludo and, things like that, which sell in
Okay.
huge numbers and make a lot of money, but they don't satisfy our need to create something new. So we are extremely passionate about what we do. Even with Blix, I'm very passionate about it. So I can't get into a business directly, which I'm not very passionate about. So there are people who are passionate about business, right? They're passionate about
Right.
business, so they would like to invest in this business, and they can make it grow with the right contacts and things like that. My
Right.
our passion, and particularly my passion, is a little different. It is passionate about what we do. We love to design and we love to create new things and have kids play with them and enjoy it. So I don't think that we would ever go in the route of investing in businesses and help, like creating a conglomerate that might do textiles one day and do toys one day and do retail one day and do property one day and things like that, real estate one day. I don't think we would ever be in that position. But of course, as to be financially disciplined, we would be investing in different industries, investing in uh, different spaces to kind of what would you call, um,
Maintain a good financial balance and
yeah,
financial
have
health.
a financial balance, exactly. Have a
Right.
proper
Right.
portfolio which is diversified enough to make sure that
Right.
we are
I mean,
never in the red
keeping you financially
personally.
independent at a good point of time.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. 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 I get it. So
And
that's
that's
a
why,
nice.
yeah, sorry, and that's why you when you asked me about that fear, right? Well, my fear is not being able to reach out to as many kids as we want, is because I personally am the type of person who likes to create things. So taking it out there is something that I'm learning myself, and I want to be good at that as well.
Right. 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 That's really nice. That's really nice. Okay. So you've been really good at telling stories, honestly, Abbas. So, and you've already told us some good amount of stories. If I ask you one failure story, a failure, maybe a huge hiccup that you have faced, and which has taught you a huge lesson, what would that be? It could be Zephyr, it could be Blix, whichever, or maybe anyone. But I want it from the business side only. So what has been that failure for you?
So back in 2013,
Hmm.
we had brought to market this huge variety of products. They were board games, and like that was a little early on in my career. And we always had this idea of how a diversified portfolio, a good portfolio of new products, with modern design and interesting stories and language would really work out. So we had
Hmm.
invested a lot in creating this whole new range of products. And when we did take it to the exhibition, we got great responses, and we were able to ship out the first few lots to our distributors and through the entire channel, but it didn't pick up. And eventually we realized that that entire line of business wasn't working as well as we had anticipated. It wasn't working at all. It was uh, it was a huge hiccup for us, because there was a lot of investment done in that. And we, it took us a while to be able to get the learnings out of that failure, that what
Right.
exactly went wrong, because we couldn't make sense of what had happened. So I guess that would be one major failure for us. One another failure which was very personal to me was that
Hmm.
one of the first mechanic sets that I had made was this motorized tank.
Right.
And It is a tank that you can add a motor and you can add those tracks, and when it runs, it actually has a capacity to climb over anything and fall over everything. So it was an
Okay.
amazing toy, and we manufactured it, we tested it out, it worked well. When we sent it out in the market, most of those products started getting rejected and sent back to us, because the tracks that we had, the rubber tracks, they tended to
Hmm.
break over time. you know in
Right.
about 10-15 days, if you keep a product like that, it tended to break, and that was not a test that we had done as comprehensively as we should. So there
Right.
was a tremendous disappointment over there, because a failure in a product like that makes everybody very nervous to invest in it for a second time, right? And that was a
Right.
product that was very, very close to my heart, because that was the first time that we developed a gearbox, and it was a lot of innovations that had gone into it, and it was a very personal failure for me.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Uh, that did teach you a lesson, I would say, and you got something out of it. So, on this
Absolutely.
very thing, I want to ask you one question. This is kind of an absolutely new question because you're in the product market also. So, and you've been there for a long time. So, my question is that uh, since this happened with you, right,
Mhm.
and there would have been situation. Let's say there's some ex kid who probably bought that product as his first Mechanix was the fire product, okay,
Yeah.
and then the kit broke and everything, and then he's like, no, I wouldn't buy it. And then there's another Y kid who has been using the other previous products, and then he's no advocating for it, that okay, ho gaya hoga, maybe faulty product or something like that. So so there would be both the numbers of multiple numbers of x's and y's out there,
Yeah.
right? And these x's would definitely be a situation that would be taking your product line down, taking your company name down, right? So how did you guys really made up for that? Because as you said, if even for the distributors and the retailers, the investment would they will think twice before investing the money back into it, right?
Hmm.
So how did you guys really made up for that kind of problems and issues that ever arrived in the business? What was the problem solving attitude that you guys picked up then?
So one learning that I've had is, a person's satisfaction with a particular product or a company or a service. No, it's very good. The satisfaction is very good when the product works exactly how it should, and when what you expected you get, and you think, good value for money. My child had fun, etc., etc. But a person's satisfaction for a product or company is much higher when a product fails, and they reach out to a company, and the company actually proactively does a lot to help that person out, right? When that happens, no, the person feels really comfortable that, okay, fine, I had a problem to hota hi hai, I've had many problems, but this is one of the unique companies that really helped us in solving that problem and making sure that our child is not disappointed. So one thing that we have with our customer service staff and things like that, and a lot of times I'm answering these calls myself. So a lot of times what happens is that we've trained them that if a child has a problem now, that even if he can't attach a nut or a bolt, take it to the
Okay.
development guy. Take it to the guy who's designing the products and making mechanics models on a regular day, and have them actually speak to the child and take them through the process of attaching that one nut and bolt. If a customer says
Okay.
that, "Arey, this piece is broken," or I've lost this piece and my child is not able to build anything, the first response should always be to look at it from the child's perspective. Can you imagine how disappointing it would be for a child that he makes an entire model, he spends about a couple of hours and he puts the batteries and it doesn't work? It's
I know. Right.
tremendously disappointing, because they want that satisfaction, because they've put in the effort at that point. So you have to be able to
Right.
empathize with that child and make it up to that child. And it's very easy to make a customer feel special. It's very easy to make a child feel special, and it brings tremendous satisfaction. So what we've learned is that if somebody has a problem, no, immediately and emphatically accept it, and try your best to solve it, because once you do that, that customer will become your customer for life.
Right.
So
Right.
we try and do that with as many failures as possible. Wherever we fail, wherever we have a person who's got a problem, but a lot of times people dismiss it as, okay, it's one of those toys that didn't work. It happens all the time, and this is one of those experiences. So that is when we really can't do it, and that's a little disappointing. But otherwise, every chance we get, we proactively send whatever parts they feel are missing or broken or whatever, to make sure that they don't really have to go through the hassle of any sort of processes and systems in place.
Right, right, right. That's very nice insight here about it. Okay, so moving on, Abbas, are you money-minded person?
I'm absolutely money minded person.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely money minded. I'm definitely not in the business of social enterprise and or something like that. I'm in this for the money, but I would never ever do something that I wasn't proud of or wasn't adding value to somebody's life if I wasn't making
Hmm.
money out of it. If I was making money out of it, so uh, I do look at profitability. I do get excited when sales happens and the balance sheets and the cash flow statements show good numbers.
Right.
But it has to come at alongside the satisfaction of being able to meet the needs of the target customer to be able to fulfill the vision with which we started this.
Absolutely. Again, listeners really want to point this out. I mean, I don't really have to say this out loud. During the whole conversation, you guys would have realized Abbas' motive has been just to make kids happy. Like this is the blatant and the very layman stuff I'm putting out, but his motive has only been to make kids happy and bring out his engineering experiences for the kids and help them grow in every manner. And from that, making money is important because at the end
Yes.
we are also putting in efforts for something. But as he said, if that customer doesn't receive the value, we don't really feel proud of that money also.
Absolutely. Like
So
I want my teachers to earn. I want the designers who are working on this to earn, and I want it to happen at in a way where the child is also having fun at the end of the day, and we are creating that impact for him.
right, right. So that's why it's really important that whatever business you get into, all sorts of satisfactions are important. I mean, definitely the world is very cruel out there in terms of business. It is. It definitely is. It's ready to eat you out. But then probably it's your job also to strike the balance.
Yeah.
So do keep that in mind. Okay. So with that said, Abbas, I don't think so. There's much of questions that I am left with. You've probably answered all of my things that I could have asked you out, but
Okay.
I don't really have anything left right now. So, Abbas, like if you want to give out a business mantra, what would that be?
A business mantra. So a few things that I've learned. Okay, I'll tell you that
Right,
there are. Somebody had to ask me what are my biggest learnings on trying to run a business,
right.
the first thing is you have to hire the right people. I am for me particularly, it's very important that they not only believe in my vision but are also very very passionate about it. And a lot of times resumes don't even reflect 5% of a person's potential. So there could be a similar resume with a person charging x and somebody who's charging 5x, and the resume might be the same. You
Hmm.
have to be able to identify, look much deeper into a person. So basically I'm not a very disciplined guy, right? I tend to get
Hmm.
lost in some things that I'm working on, and that is when my people actually do come forward and say, okay, this needs to be done, and this is like we're not able to reach what we need to do if we're not going to get this. So I like the fact that we've got a team of people who are extremely passionate and really believe in the vision. The second
Right.
thing that I have learned, at least in my experience, is that strategizing and execution are two very different tasks. While they are very
Hmm.
dependent on each other, sometimes we think of one while performing the other. A part of our strategy is to have our own teachers stationed in school, but this is a nightmare to
Hmm.
execute. But
Right.
it is critical for our success. If you let execution influence your strategy, your offering will be a sacrifice, and you won't be able to do right by your customer. And if you keep doubting your strategy while executing, you will blame strategy for failure because your heart wasn't really into it. So strategy and execution are very different, and you have to keep them separate, and you have to think of only one at a time. Of course they share a lot of information, but they don't influence each other. So that's
Right.
something that has really worked for me.
Right, 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 right. So that's a very, very good insight. Second one is really, really amazing, I would say. And probably the first time someone is saying this part on the on my podcast. So yes, listeners, this is very insightful. Keeping strategy and execution different, yet even though they share a lot of information.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are at the end of the podcast, and before we end, Abbas, uh, there's this one thing that we do. I know I'm still thinking of questions. I don't know why, because there's so much to learn from you. I don't know, there are so many stories that I wish to hear more about your experience, but I don't really have questions. So there's this one thing that we do before we end is that we ask our guest to tell us recommend us another entrepreneur whom do you think has a very or inspiring journey, and we can talk to them about their journey on the show and give insight to our listeners. Who would you recommend?
So I have a very close friend, Sachin
Right.
Parekh, and he runs this floral company, and they do boutique. They do flowers and things like that for personal, for events and for ceremonies, or even for personal, just to keep in your house and things like that. So he's also somebody that I really admire for the passion that he has for a business that was created by his mother out of a lot of love, and how he's been able to take her legacy ahead, and have her spirit in everything that he does. So I love the vision and the way that he's looking after his business.
Wow, that sounds
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'll definitely talk to Sachin, and I'll request you to connect me with him, so
Absolutely.
that we can get him on the show and talk about his journey as well. With that said, guys, this was Abbas with us, with an amazing journey, and I would say you have got the story of your all-time favorite toys of fire out here right now, and you have this new age of toys and educational toys, I would say. Blix coming up, and honestly, being a personal fanatic of robots and trying what not in that industry, keeping my hands dirty at that part as well. This is something you really need to look out for. And if you have someone whom you can recommend Blix, I'm very sure that person is definitely going to learn something. I have played. I mean, Abbas has played. I to definitely have played with mechanics in my early ages as well. And believe me, I have learned a lot with it. A lot of my creativity came out of it, and what have I not tried out of it? So yes, do recommend the Blix kit to your friends and the school teachers and everyone you can do so. That said, Abbas, I really want to thank you for taking out time from your schedule and coming on the show and giving us insight into your mindset. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for Sarthak for having me also over here and giving me the opportunity to talk about all of these things that we are doing. So thanks a lot. It was great. Great chatting
Thank
with
you
you.
so much, Abbas. Same talk. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'll definitely see you soon.
Sure.
Bye bye.
Bye, Sarthak.
I hope that you're able to take back something insightful from this podcast and apply it in your life to be a better version of yourself and add to your Dhandho Soch. If you know someone whom you think should feature on my podcast and has a very inspiring entrepreneurial journey, then do drop me a DM on my Instagram, SarthakVarshney. Sarthak Varshney. Yeah, that's me. I'm the founder of SV Clicks, and SV Clicks is the producer of this show. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn as well with the same name. If you're willing to listen to more of such unheard, inspiring stories of the entrepreneurs, then don't forget to follow us by pressing that follow button on your podcast screen. Thank you for being such an amazing audience. Keep learning, keep growing. We'll be back soon. See ya.